Disaster communication is the next topic which is there in your 4th module, and it's very important topic, so we are going to deal with disaster communication today. The communication means you are passing information from one person to another. So when it comes into disaster situation, the communication is very important. That is before the disaster, during the disaster, and immediately after the disaster situation. See, if you have a sound communication and before the disaster you are getting some early warning about the disaster. So in the case of man-made disaster, what we can do is we can prevent them from happening. And if it is a natural disaster, means you can't stop it. If we get a information from satellite mapping, we can understand what is going to happen and which area is going to get affected, and we can move the people from that place, and we can arrange some medical facilities, transporters, volunteers, etc. Now, how this communication will help you during the disaster? See, if the calamity has occurred at a place and we get a correct information, then we can do all follow-up actions by sending the rescue team to that place. Even we can concentrate on the particular area where it has affected too much. Then, next thing is immediately after the disaster situation, what you can do is you can arrange recovery and relief also. Now, disaster risk communication. Disaster risk communication may take place through many different channels, including face-to-face conversation, telephones, group meeting, mass media such as radio, internet, interactive social media such as Twitter and Facebook. See, if you want to communicate the disaster risk immediately, then you can use these methods like face-to-face communication, telephone calls, group meeting, then in media also, that is television, radio, internet, through internet and all, you will be spreading the information to the people over there, or to whole world you will be providing the information. Now it is a non-emergency communication, that you can use a text message, you can email, or you can use some social media instead of making directly phone calls and all. Next one is effective communication. So communication you have studied now. Now what is this effective communication? Communication is more than exchanging information. It includes non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication means it's actually the emotions, that is from your body language, your facial expression, your actions and all. You can understand what is the intensity of the disaster which has happened over there. So effective communication is also when the listener recognizes what has happened in a situation, and from the both sides they must understand each other's emotions. Then only the communication will become effective. So let me put it into words. Effective communication includes non-verbal communication, engaged listening, managing stress in the moment. See, managing stress at the moment is very important because the person is being affected by the disaster. So they will be very much stressed. So you have to manage the stress of that person also and understand his feeling, the ability to communicate assertively and the capacity to recognize and understand your own emotions and those of the person who are communicating with. So from both sides, both emotions should be known. Then it will enhance the provision of difficult messaging without creating any conflict. So next one is basic steps in communication. See, whenever disaster happens, information must be passed on, no? Then let us check what are the basic steps involved. The first step is forming a communicative intent. That is, you have to understand the purpose of the communication. Next one is message composition. Message should be composed in such a way that no confusion should happen and a true message must be passed. Next one is message encoding. After the message composition, the message must be encoded, next message must be transmitted and it must be received at the receiver end, and thereafter the message should be decoded and interpreted. Next one, in order to get an effective communication, what are the steps needed? First step is that use standard terminology when communicating risk or disaster, copying, relicence, vulnerability, etc. Okay, you must always use a standard terminology. You give an early warning or message about the disaster. You must always use a standard terminology. You can see in the news when they give a scrolling message about a situation which has happened, it will be in a standard format and there will be standard terminology they will be following. And this is because the people should understand and they should not confuse and they should not misinterpret about the situation which has happened there. Next is request and provide clarification when needed, allow or encourage the beneficiaries to respond to the issue they are not sure of. Whenever a disaster has happened, then you have heard that many control rooms will be set over there. If you want any information, you can contact the control room. That is, you have to provide all clarification related to that disaster. Next one is the communicator should also be well informed about the situation of the things with the community where the information is to be disseminated. See, whenever somebody is communicating about the disaster information, then he should have well information about the situation which has happened over there. Next, you have to ensure the statement are direct and unambiguous. So, whenever you are talking, it must be very clear so that everybody can understand. Next is inform appropriate individuals when the mission or plan changes. See, we have decided one plan and if there is any change in the plan, you must inform the particular person or particular individual about the plan change. Next is communicate all information needed by those individuals or team external to the team. Next, use of non-verbal communication appropriately. You can use different body actions, you can use different tone of your sound. If it is a small disaster, you can ask the people to be very vigilant about the situation. They should stay in the home, they should not go out and all. But if it is very dangerous situation is going to happen, then you must raise your sound level to move the people from there. Now next one, what are the barriers? Barriers in effective communication. First thing is that non-focus on the issue at the hand, non-being attentive. Whenever you are talking about a disaster, nobody is listening. See, local people, for their benefit only we are speaking, but they are not listening to us. There won't be any effective communication. Next thing, avoid interruption. Show interest in what is being said. See, what somebody is telling you something about the disaster, then you should not interrupt them. Okay, and you should show the interest in listening to them. Next is avoid being judgmental but make provision for feedback. So never take judgment without taking a feedback. Next is pay attention to non-verbal communication. If somebody is giving you non-verbal communication, then pay attention to that. Then be conscious of the individual difference. See, there will be some uneducated people. There will be educated people. Educated people can easily understand what you are telling, but uneducated people can't understand properly. At that time, for effective communication, you should be very conscious about the individual difference and your communication should reach to, or your information you are passing should reach to educated as well as uneducated people. Next thing is keep stress in check but be assertive. See, whenever you are talking, a person is affected by the disaster, he will be very much stressed. So at that time you should communicate in such a way that it should not give more stress to that person. Next is what is the importance of communication in the disaster risk reduction. First one is communication promotes preparedness for the disaster. Communication provides early warning signal of the disaster. See, whenever a disaster is going to happen, if we give an early warning through communication, we will be very much prepared to face a situation. So we can even plan how to save the life of the people, how to save their property and all. Next thing is communication facilitates proper response to the disaster. What all response you have to take, that is the fire force will be coming, the military persons will be coming. So you can give training and instructions to these people. Next is communication during immediately after the disaster situation is very important component of response and recovery. So if you give a proper communication, then you can get an idea how to respond to the situation and how to recover from this situation. Next, effective communication connects effective people, family, community with the first responder, support system and other family members.
Now, the reliable and accessible communication and information system is also are the key to the community's resilience. And resilience means that
The ability of the community to recover from the disaster. Before disaster strikes, telecommunication can be used to pass the information about the danger and all. Then other telecommunication application includes remote sensing, global positioning, etc. will give you the track of approaching hazard, alerting authority, and you can even provide warning. Now, effective disaster communication. There are some principles related to effective risk communication. First one is an understanding of the characteristics of an audience is essential to developing effective risk communication effort. See that we are going on speaking about the disaster is going to happen, and it is for the welfare of the local people who are living there, but they are not listening. Then what is the need of giving such communication, or what is the need of giving such information? So you have to understand the characteristics of the audience. That is the basic principle of the effective disaster communication. Next thing is that who is delivering information is important. When and how it is going to be delivered is also very important. Then communication must continuously adapt to the changing situation. Next is using the preparedness approach like games, interactive discussion group or teaching. Make a proposal of how you can effectively increase the knowledge of preparedness behavior of the target group on the disaster management. So if we give an interactive discussion, the games as well as the teaching and all, then you can increase the knowledge of the people over there, and you can go on preparing for the disaster management. Now, promotion of discussion group approach to general disaster preparedness is more effective than the simple provision of the written information. See, if you have a group discussion of the disaster preparedness, then it will be more easier than you write and give. So this was about the effective disaster communication.
now disaster risk communication helps to provide the public with the information about the effects of the disaster. Okay, how actions may affect the outcome of the disaster.
In other words, it helps to inform the public about the potential disaster situation to enable the people make informed choices. So it will make the people to take whatever actions for the disaster is going to happen. So disaster risk communication may takes place through many different channels, including face-to-face conversation. You can even have a telephone calls. You can make a group meeting, and you can even communicate using mass media such as television, radio, internet, and interactive social media such as Twitter and Facebook. That is, you can use all this media to convey the information. Now, so let us check what is disaster communication methods. Most of the disaster communication methods you will be knowing. I'm just repeating it once again. So first thing is almost all you know that it will be the social media. This feature will allow the user who are located within a certain distance of natural disaster occurrence to log in and tell the friends if they are safe and check to see if their loved ones have verified their safety as well. So that is a social media utilization. Next is two-way radio. So two-way radios, you already know that it is walkie-talkie. It's a pair of handheld device. So here one can talk while other can listen and vice versa. You can have a citizen band radio. It's basically used for short distance communication on various frequencies. Although it's more complex than the previous two-way radio, but it contains much more functionality. Next, you can use a mobile application. So cell phone is not basically for playing games and all. It can be used for saving life during disaster. One particular app called Life 360. It is a free app which is available. It is used to access the specific user location and also contains messaging features. So they can notify or automatically alert the user that a loved ones arrives and check in at a particular destination as well. Next app is
CMAP.
this is a particular app that gives a user access to preparedness tips. Like it will give the advices like survival advices, emergency checklists, and meeting locations that can be saved to mobile devices. And it gives the user access to weather alerts also. Okay. weather alerts which is coming from the weather service. Next is police scanner. This device allows the user to hear all emergency communication between officials in the police, rescue, fire, respondent, military and aircraft industry. Okay. Here the user cannot broadcast on it, but you can hear what the information is being passed. So that is also an way of disaster communication. Next is word of mouth. See, when everything fails, that is your internet access is not getting, the devices are being ruined, and for the survival, you can directly communicate with your mouth that you are in a very bad situation and all. Next one is using landline phones. When the mobile phones are not getting, that is range problem, anything is happening, then land phones can be used for disaster communication.
Next is satellite phone, which is called as sat phones. Satellite phones are much pricier than all this type of communication. But here, there is a best part of this is some satellite phones have the coverage in all part of the world, and it is available in the part where the cell phone towers are not available. Amateur radio, it's called as ham radio, is a product which is similar to your CB radio. Besides that, it requires a user to be the licensed American amateur radio operator. So here, more authenticity of the information is provided. That's all about the disaster communication. Thank you, students. Thank you for watching my video.